Life can be unpredictable, and things can change in a heartbeat. In February, I ran a survey where I asked people who had moved to a new city in the last 2 years if they regretted the move, which city was it, and why do they regret that move. Like I said in the state version of this video, people in the survey gave reasons that were all over the place. I got a lot of answers in a lot of different cities. As you can imagine, the larger the city, the more people are going to be moving there. So they obviously got more responses. That being said, I did find a few smaller cities that did get a lot of responses. I'll tell you about those after number 2 on this list. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Memphis, Tennessee. If you've been to Memphis, or you know about Memphis, or you've watched this channel long enough, you already know Memphis is a nightmare. Why people would move there in the first place is beyond me. I think the smart move for Tennessee would be to give Memphis to Arkansas. It's in the southwest corner of the state. Maybe Mississippi will take a little bit of it, but Arkansas can have it. I mean, they already got West Memphis, right? The reasons given for regretting the move all centered around some form of crime. Maybe it was violent crime, maybe cars getting broken into, things like that. One respondent said they would feel more comfortable staying in one of the exhibits in cat country at the Memphis Zoo than some of the neighborhoods in Memphis. I had to look it up. Apparently that's where they keep all the jaguars, cougars, lions, and tigers. A lot of people kind of mentioned that Beale Street was nice to visit and downtown was okay. It's just some of the neighborhoods straight up suck. Now, I get it. That could be said for any neighborhood, but Memphis is one of the most deadly cities in the United States right now, so I could see why people would regret moving there. Number 9, Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville gets the nod for people regretting moving there. Now, there's a lot of different reasons for it, but one reason I saw show up more often than not was the smell. It was always like the crime's bad or there's too much traffic and it smells. It was always like a secondary thing, but that showed up a lot. I did a little reading and there is a stink problem in Jacksonville. Here's the thing, it used to be worse. For many years, Jacksonville had a reputation as being America's smelliest city. Most of that stench was centered around one area of the city. But if the wind shifted, the whole place stank to high heaven. The smell originated from 2 paper mills and 2 turbine processing factory and the city's sewage treatment plant. These days, the smell comes from the sulfur at the waste treatment plant. Now, some people did complain about the Maxwell House coffee factory downtown, but I don't know, the smell of coffee I love. I used to work across the street from Farmers Brothers Coffee in Southern California. I love that smell. It was great. But yeah, that kept showing up. Crime was also a big one too, and people kept mentioning it was getting really expensive to live in Jacksonville. In reality, Jacksonville's not that expensive. I don't know why people kept complaining about it, but as far as big cities go, they're really not that bad. They're getting there, but they're not there yet. Number 8, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I was a little surprised at this one. Every time I've been to Oklahoma City, I thought it was great. I haven't been there in like 2 years, but still. Most of the reasons people regret moving to Oklahoma City centered around crime. Usually it was the crime was getting worse, things like that. I also saw a couple people say that they were teachers there, but they hated it and they had to leave. I don't know if that was exclusive to teachers or what, but I did a little reading and I found out that Oklahoma City does have a hard time keeping teachers. The growing homeless population was also brought up a few times. I guess they're breaking into cars quite often these days. Like I said, I don't think Oklahoma City's that bad. I've never lived there for any extended amount of time, just a couple weeks here or there. But this video isn't my opinion, it's based on a survey. Number 7, San Francisco, California. Congratulations, San Francisco. You made it on another negative list. Now, San Francisco has a lot of things going for it. Number 1, it's a beautiful city. Yes, they have a ton of homeless and they got a lot of problems, but it is a beautiful city. And the entire city is not just overrun with homeless. It's got some really nice parts still. It's just their homeless sections like the Tenderloin are insanely bad. The second reason people regretted moving to San Francisco, and people mention this almost as many times as they did the homeless situation, parking. There's no parking in San Francisco. One guy said if you don't have a driveway or a garage to park your car in, just sell your car and buy a bike. A lot of other people brought up the fact that they get paid a lot in San Francisco and it's still not worth it. Number 6, Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, this one should be a little bit of a surprise to people, because most people that don't know much about Hawaii think that it's just a paradise. And in a lot of respects, it is. It's a tropical island and it's beautiful. But Honolulu is a big city, and it's got big city problems. They've got a serious homeless population, which showed up quite often on why people regretted moving to Honolulu. But the biggest reason people regretted moving to Honolulu was the cost of living and cost of housing, which is understandable. We all know that the cost of living is high in Hawaii because most everything needs to be shipped there. You're also living on an island, so you're pretty close to the water, and that's always more expensive. Number 5, Fresno, California. You ever heard of Fresno? A lot of people haven't, but it is in the Central Valley of California. Technically, it's in the Tulare Basin, which is part of the Central Valley. There's 4 sections to the Central Valley, which even a lot of Californians don't understand. There's the southern part, which is the Tulare Basin. Then you have the San Joaquin Basin, which has Merced and Modesto. You have Stockton, which is in the Delta and East Side streams. And then, of course, you have the Sacramento Valley, which has Yuba City, Chico, and at the northern tip, Redding, California. And out of all those places, the absolute worst place to live is Fresno, California. Fresno sucks, and just about anyone there or anyone that has visited will tell you Fresno sucks. Fresno is known for having some of the worst air quality in the nation, and it's got high crime, a serious homeless situation, but the biggest complaint people had when they said they regretted moving to Fresno, the heat in the summer. Most people don't understand that most of California is a desert. Sure, they got beautiful beaches and mountains and everything else, but a lot of that state is a desert, and it gets that desert heat, even in the sections that aren't technically deserts. But I thought that was kind of funny. Of all the problems Fresno has, the overwhelming response was the heat in the summer. Number 4, Miami, Florida. Do you really need to say Florida when you say Miami? I mean, I think everyone just assumes that's the only Miami. It's not the only Miami, but that's the famous Miami. In case you were wondering, there's a Miami, Arizona, Miami, Indiana, Miami, Missouri, Miami, New Mexico. There's one in Ohio, Oklahoma, Texas, West Virginia. There's a Miami County and a Miami Township. There's 3 Miami rivers, one in Florida, obviously, and there's another one in New York and one in Oregon. Ohio, of course, has the Great Miami River and the Little Miami River. There you go, you got your Miami education today. But of all the response, one of the main things that people said about Miami is it is a great place to visit, but they regret moving there and actually living there. Nothing really stood out, crime's always mentioned, traffic's mentioned, cost of living's mentioned, but nothing was overwhelming about Miami as to reasons why they regret it. I love Miami. I gain a few pounds every time I visit. They have the best food there. One girl did have a good reason why she regretted moving to Miami. She said too many fake rich people. She said you can't go to a club or a bar without someone telling you that they're about to be this big rap star or they own a record label that's just getting ready to blow up. She said she couldn't stand it. She did marry a guy who was a concierge at a hotel. She went in length on this. It was pretty interesting. Now they live in Charleston, South Carolina. Number 3, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now this one was really interesting for a few reasons. First of all, Oklahoma rarely shows up on a negative list twice. The other thing is the reasons people gave for regretting moving to Tulsa. We saw a little of this on the state version, but there was all kinds of things about the people are idiots here. That was like the biggest thing. These people are idiots and I wouldn't recommend moving here. One person in the section where I left on the survey for reason why you regret it, he just put, or they put, I don't know if it was a guy or girl, inbreeding. It's always nice. Tulsa, in my opinion, is a city that's in transition. It's going from a okay city to a city that's kind of bad. Their crime rate's been climbing over the last few years. Right now, the total crime rate there is 166% above the national average. So I could see why a lot of people brought up crime also. Number 2, Riverside, California. Riverside, California is kind of unique. It's got a lot of crime. The schools aren't great. They have a lot of poverty. They always have an above average unemployment rate. Their cost of living is still really high, and their houses are terribly expensive. It makes no sense. The people that said they regretted moving to Riverside had 3 things that really bothered them. They said it was dirty and the air quality sucked. They said they have a ton of homeless, and nothing is safe in Riverside. Apparently, they have a lot of those smash and grab robberies going on there. Whether it's in a store, they just run in, they smash something, grab whatever they can, leave. Or a lot of car windows are smashed, and people just grab whatever they can that's inside your car. thing that sucks about California and a lot of other places, the police won't even respond to something like that. It's like, okay, if the police don't see it happening, they're really not going to do anything about it. This, of course, leads to higher insurance premiums. In case you haven't been keeping count, that is 3 California cities. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link down below. Any of the proceeds we make off that channel goes to teachers through Donors Choose, which helps them with projects they have going on in their class, things like that. So it really helps out if you guys go over and subscribe, maybe watch some videos. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, here's some smaller cities that popped up that I was kind of surprised about. Plano, Texas. Everyone's moving to Plano. They've got a lot of things going on there, but people say it's getting too crowded, it's getting too expensive. McAllen, Texas. People pretty much feel that place just sucks. Grand Junction, Colorado. I didn't know people were moving to Grand Junction, but apparently the few that have really regret it. And the last one that popped up a few times was Bowling Green, Kentucky. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Anchorage, Alaska. Anchorage, Alaska is kind of known for not being a great place to live. I mean, beautiful scenery outside the city. You're in Alaska. It sounds like it'd be a nice place to live, especially if you like cold weather and you like the outdoors. But like every place in Alaska, it's got a high cost of living and the housing's kind of expensive too. And that pretty much are 2 of the biggest complaints people have about why they regret moving to Anchorage, Alaska. They also got a pretty good crime rate. Their violent crime rate is 213% above the national average. And that doesn't even count bear attacks. Just kidding. Bear attacks rarely happen. But if you don't know much about Alaska, you probably think it happens all the time. You actually have a better chance of being in a road rage incident with a clergyman. Could you imagine that? You go home, your wife's all, what happened to you? You got a black eye and the windshield smashed on the car. Look at her and go, Father Mulcahy, I cut him off. One of the biggest complaints about living in Anchorage, though, was cabin fever. Even though it's not like a cabin, people get socked in for the weather, and I guess it just drives a lot of people crazy, especially if you come from someplace like Arizona or California, New Mexico, someplace like that. You're just not used to being home that much, and sometimes the weather gets pretty harsh there. Now, to people that live in Anchorage or whatever, the weather's not that bad. They're used to it. This is just people that moved to Anchorage that regretted it. This is the reason why. Anytime I ever bring up something about the weather, there's always a local that wants to dispute it. Stop typing. I'm just relaying what some other people said about Anchorage. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.